This is me, aged 19, studying about whisky as part of my university course and realising I don't like it at all. At 20, I left Scotland for my dream job overseas. This took me around the world for 12 years. But no matter where I was, I noticed in every bar there would always be a bottle of Scottish whisky. It was everywhere. We had infiltrated the world. When you share that you're from Scotland, people usually try to think of something that they associate with the country. Freedom, kilts, the monster, football, and whisky. Whisky, it's the national drink of Scotland. I'm a Scottish person and people would ask me about it and I knew practically nothing. Fast forward to 2023. I am back in Scotland, determined to finally travel my own country, a place I've hardly seen anything of. I had to start liking my country's national drink, so what do? I go to Islay, Scotland's very own whisky island. I told myself I am not leaving the island until I like whisky. I visited every distillery, I took tours, I learned about peat, about casks, and about how whisky is actually made. I also tried a lot of it. And guess what? It turned out I did like whisky. The problem was never whisky. It was just the ones I tried when I was 19 were just not to my taste. Since that trip to Islay, I'm a serious whisky convert. I love it. I've made friends through whisky, hosted whisky group trips, and even followed a bottle's journey from a Scottish distillery out into the world. I've never counted, but I've probably visited over half of Scotland's 150 distilleries. And all of that leads us to today, the day I launch my very own whisky. I have made it all the way to the west coast of Scotland to the Ardnamurchan Distillery. Let's go inside. The distillery is located on the Ardnamurchan Peninsula, one of the most remote and sparsely populated parts of Scotland. It's known for its rugged landscapes and long, winding single-track roads.
Hi, Callum. How are you?
Yeah,
Good to see you
really
again.
nice to see you too. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I am so excited to be back here at the Ardnamurchan Distillery, one of my favourite distilleries and whiskies in the whole of Scotland. I'm so excited for what we have planned today.
Yeah, we've got some very exciting things going on today, and we just want to welcome you back. When was the last time you were here?
About 18 months ago. Yeah, I came and you gave a fantastic tour around the distillery.
And that time we kind of skimmed the surface in terms of production, and we had a good look around it. Today we're going to take a deep dive into maturation, into warehouse, with the hope of finding that one very special cask. So I think we have a pretty exciting couple of hours ahead of us.
Yeah, can't wait. Let's get started.
Let's have a dram. So one really important aspect of maturation for us here at Ardnamurchan Distillery is the fact that we mature all of our whisky here on site on this very remote peninsula, which is quite an unusual thing for many distilleries, particularly in remote locations. You know, the logistics of building warehousing here, bringing the casks here via lorry, maturing and then taking the casks away for bottling is quite a massive operation, but we feel it's very important to keep our whisky here on site all the time. Currently we have around about 19,000 casks, so there's quite a few options we have for Ruth to look at. But for today, we're going to be mainly focusing on warehouse 1, the warehouse behind me, because that's predominantly where most of the older whiskies we have. The distillery, bear in mind, is only just about to turn 12 years old, so we're hoping to look at whiskies closer to that 12-year-old mark. Maybe between 9 and 12 would be really interesting to look at.
Smell of whisky already. Very overpowering as soon as you walk into the warehouse.
And it never gets old. It doesn't matter how many times you walk in here, it's like, I don't know, it's one of my favourite places in the distillery.
If you're not familiar with how Scotch whisky is made, it all starts with barley. The barley is soaked, allowed to germinate and dried, sometimes using peat smoke. before being mixed with hot water to release its natural sugars. Yeast is added to turn those sugars into alcohol, which is then distilled to make it stronger and develop its flavour.
For Scotch whisky to be classed as Scotch whisky, we need to take that new make spirit, that crystal clear spirit. Ours comes off our stills at, say, around about 72% alcohol. We then need to reduce that with a little bit of water off the burn down to 63.5 and then age it in oak casks. So for Scotch whisky, it must be matured in an oak barrel in Scotland for that minimum of 3 years and 1 day before you can even class it as Scotch whisky. But we do have to find whiskies that are normally older than 3 years, and we need to find that sweet spot, that age that the whisky is balancing the distillery character, that new make spirit flavour, with the casks. And obviously the casks are going to impart flavour, and we're going to touch more on that as we kind of meander through the warehouse.
One of the reasons Ardnamurchan is one of my favourite whiskies is its taste. What I've realised from trying lots of whiskies over the last few years is that my favourites tend to have a maritime taste and a slight peatiness.
So here at the distillery we make essentially two types of spirit. We make peated spirit, which has that kind of smoky, peaty flavour, and then we make unpeated spirit, which has none of that. And normally when you drink a bottle of Ardnamurchan, we've then mixed these two flavours together. Obviously in the warehouse, they're matured separately. So I think to start this process that we should try a very naked expression of Ardnamurchan, unpeated bourbon and peated bourbon. And we can compare them, both same type of cask, just different types of spirit, and we can see what you prefer. But we'll start with this unpeated 2014. This is a cask from our very first year of production, and it's quite early on in that year. So this is some of the oldest liquid that we have ever distilled, and this is probably a cask that nobody's ever tried before. So exciting. First time.
Hello.
Hello, Denny. Just
I've come to help.
Oh, great. Oh, it's really quite cold when you try it in the warehouse, isn't it? Compared to when you have it in the house.
Mm-hmm. And normally what we would like to do is actually warm it up in your hands.
Okay.
Warm it up in your hands.
Yeah, it's a little cuddle.
Bring up the temperature.
You're having a little hug with your glass and you bring it up.
It's quite good, that.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Whew, first cast is good, that's good.
That's very nice. Callum, is this one's a dunnage warehouse, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So is this the only type of warehouse that you have here at Ardnamurchan, or do you have other types as well?
So all of our warehousing at Ardnamurchan is dunnage warehouses.
Okay.
And for those who don't know what dunnage is, essentially just means that we have earth floors and our casks are beautifully stacked, 3 or even 4 high. Quite a skilled job to actually build these stoves. There's advantages to that, there's also disadvantages, but the main advantage is, Ruth, you'll have felt it when you came into this warehouse, it's quite cold. And that's really to do with the earth floor, keeping that humidity, that cool air all year round. So it doesn't matter, I don't know what temperature it is in here right now, but what do you think? 10 degrees, something like that? If you came in here and it was 25 degrees outside, probably still be this kind of cool climate, damp. So this is perfect for maturation, gentle maturation, long maturation. So we'll have a look at this cask. This is, it's a 2015 American bourbon cask, but peated. So it'd be really nice to compare those two different spirit types and see what you prefer.
So I put it all the way down?
All the way down.
Yeah.
It's quite good, yeah. And then you just let go of the finger at the top, and then there's your sample.
You might be wondering, what is peat? It's old, decomposed plant material found in bogs. When it's burned to help dry barley in whisky making, the smoke from it infuses into the grain and gives the whisky a smoky flavour. Okay, let's give it a try. Oh yeah, really quite peaty compared to the previous one. Very nice though. This is going to be very hard. They're all very nice so far.
Different characters, but yeah.
I think this one's also a 9 out of 10 for me as well. I'm scared to give
We're going
any of
nines
them.
already.
I know, I'm scared to give any of them a 10 because maybe there'll be one that's incredible, and I need to have a baseline to start with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this one is also going to get a 9, but I think it gets a bit of an edge because it's peated. Yeah, because quite like the peated ones. Ardnamurchan is one of Scotland's most sustainable distilleries.
So due to the location of the distillery, we are in a really remote part of the west coast of Scotland. We have to use local resources, renewable resources, and luckily we have plenty of those. We use biomass, wood chip burner for heating up steam that then heats up the stills. And we use the Glenmore River, which runs past the distillery. We have a hydroelectric generator in there. We have 138 solar panels, and they generate a decent amount of electricity that we can then add to the grid as we go. But also, when you make whiskey and the spirit that goes into the casks, you end up with byproducts. Those byproducts need to be repurposed. And what we do is the pot ale that comes off the wash still and the draft that comes off the mash tun gets combined together, dehydrated, and turned into little animal pellets, and it feeds the local animals on the peninsula. We also take the spent lees, which comes off the spirit still, and that gets put through a seaweed bed, and it gets treated that way through the roots system of the seaweed, and it turns into a neutral liquid that can get put back into nature. So it's an incredible circular economy that goes on behind the scenes of making our whiskey.
Now we're heading deeper into the warehouse to try some more casks. The smell in here is so overwhelming of whiskey, but it's really lovely smell.
So Ruth, obviously we looked at probably the most commonly used cask in the Scotch whisky industry, and that's obviously ex-American bourbon. In Scotch whisky, we very rarely use what would be known as virgin oak casks, brand new barrels. They tend to give off a hell of a lot of flavour from the wood, and it's not necessarily something that we always want, because we're wanting, as I mentioned, we want that balance between the character of the distillery and that new mix spirit character and the cask. We don't want the cask doing too much work. So we predominantly use second-hand barrels from a variety of different places, predominantly bourbon, but the next most common cask type is sherry. So these are all sherry casks. These are what we call hogsheads, kind of medium-sized cask. And what we should expect when we go into one of these is, first of all, a lot more colour in the whiskey. So it should be a lot darker, and that colour is obviously coming from not just the wood, but also the wine that is embedded in that cask.
Yeah, you can really see the difference in the colour compared to the previous one.
I also love how it clings to the inside of the glass. You can see how oily it is, just running down the side of the glass.
But does it taste any good?
Does it taste
So from the edge of the cask, we can see that the spirit was distilled in 2018, and that's cask number 884. And if we type that number into a database, we can pull up any information that we need to know about this cask. This is also Oloroso sherry. So there's different types of sherries, and we use a variety. So, for example, we use Oloroso. There's PX sherry, Pedro Jimenez sherry, but we also use things like Palo Cortado, Fino, Manzanilla, you name it, and all these different sherries impart slightly different characteristics, and that's what we're always looking for.
Let's give it a try. Yeah, that is quite different.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Much sweeter.
Yeah, the sweetness comes from the sherry cask, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of nice things in there, but it's definitely, I mean, I'm not wanting to put words in your mouth, but for me, it's not ready.
No, it's too spirity.
I definitely feel like the first two that we tried were better for me compared to that one. Yeah. But this one is still nice, but I think for me, this one is maybe like 7 out of 10 compared to...
We'll still take 7, I think. 7.
I know.
It's still really nice. It is really nice. Yeah, there is a real difference between the different casks. It really makes such a big impact on the taste of the whiskey, which is so interesting.
Interesting thing about a dunnage warehouse, maybe something that in any other kind of food and drink might be considered a bad thing, is all this mould that's building up on the walls. That's actually quite a good sign of a proper dunnage warehouse. It means this damp environment is is the perfect breeding ground for all this fungus, but when it comes to the casks, it is the perfect environment. I mean, look at this cask here. It's getting a bit, what would you say, fusty, but the whiskey seems to like it. 4 o'clock, so the guys are finishing up.
And they turned the lights off and locked us inside the warehouse.
There's worse places to be locked in. We've got our glasses and we've got our tools. We'll be fine.
It's a bit cold if we're stuck here overnight, but it'll be fine.
We've got central heating.
We do,
yeah?
yes.
Oh.
Yes, in the form of whiskey. So we're going to take you into, it's essentially the same warehouse, but this warehouse one has 2 floors. So take you up to the upper warehouse. Slightly different, some more unusual casks, and we can try something a bit more left field, something different, something a wee bit more experimental. Come on. This warehouse doesn't regulate the temperature the same.
Okay.
So when it's warm outside, it's much warmer. When it's cold outside, it's much colder, which can be like a good thing for maturation. We maybe lose more angel share, more evaporation when the weather's hotter, but it does mean that the whiskies mature slightly quicker.
Okay.
So we do a lot of what's called finishing casks up in this warehouse, where we might mature in ex-American bourbon casks in one of our traditional dunnage warehouses, and then we might transfer that liquid into maybe sherry or maybe rum, or it could be tequila, it could be port casks, and they quite often are taken up here to finish for maybe a year, 2 years, sometimes even 3 years. I wanted to show you this type of cask. This is a cask from Paul Champagne. So it's actually more like a Chardonnay barrique. So the cask was used to make Chardonnay that would then be turned into champagne. And we've got a great relationship with this family-run champagne house in Laminio. I actually don't think this will be ready, but I think, yeah, I'm excited for you to try it and see what you think of it. It's never been opened before, but this cask has been used twice before. So in Scotch whisky, we can use barrels really as much as we like. The more times you use them, the less flavour you're necessarily going to get out of them. So my hunch is this will not be ready, but it's still interesting to look at. So yeah, it's not been in these champagne or Chardonnay barriques for very long, a year and a half nearly, but already it's given off quite an incredible colour, kind of brass. We would like to collaborate with like-minded companies, and this family that make this amazing champagne are so dedicated to flavour, and yeah, they kind of resonate with us, so that's why we have this collaboration.
First ever time trying champagne whiskey. It's very nice. It tastes more alcoholic than the previous ones that we've had. Is that the case? Would the percentage of alcohol be higher?
Yeah, quite possibly. In here, because it's a warmer warehouse, we tend to lose more volume of liquid, but we can quite often retain alcohol. So yeah, it might well be sitting closer to 58, 60%, something like that. So yeah, it maybe even take water quite well.
Okay.
So we should find that from casks in this warehouse as well, I would say.
It is nice though.
It's remarkably different though.
I don't want to say like it's my least favourite because Jenny, you love it, but I think I prefer like the other ones we tried compared to this. This is for me also maybe like 7.
I prefer the bourbons to this, but yeah, that's it. That's
I have to say, I think this one in room temperature, where there's a little bit more warmth in it, it works a bit better.
Obviously this is interesting, but I would really like to show you a personal favourite cask type of mine, which I think, Jenny, you have tried before.
I'm intrigued. Which one is it?
Ex-Islay casks.
Ooh. An ex-Islay cask.
We've taken this unpeated spirit and matured it in casks that came from Islay. Bear in mind, most Islay distilleries predominantly make this more heavily peated spirit.
Okay, looking forward to
Shall
trying
we
it.
go and
Yeah.
find some? There's definitely some in this warehouse. That's
Okay.
It's from a really world-class distillery on Islay. And yeah, it just shows again, we talked about collaborating with the champagne house Paul and La, but even in the Scotch whisky industry itself, between distilleries, there's this kind of close collaboration. So yeah, some distilleries are quite happy to sell their casks to us, and we'll send our casks sometimes to other companies or do these kind of small collaborations. But yeah, I'm excited to see what you think of this. So yeah, we should expect a similar colour to the whiskies we went to first. That light straw, kind of grassy colour, yeah. And again, this has got good age. This is 2016, so this is not far away from being a 10-year-old whiskey.
Oh, it smells so good.
It's quite creamy.
It smells like buttery.
Buttery, yeah.
Oh, like it smells like a yummy cake that you want to eat. It's a strange way to describe it. Okay, let's try it. Oh, that's really nice. You can taste the peat, but it's not overpowering at all. It's very subtle. Oh, this is lovely. I really like this one. This might be a 10. 10 out of 10, I think.
I think I'm going to go in. Just that lovely, ashy, beautiful, subtle smoke that just gives you that whisper of it's Islay, but it's not gorgeous. That's gorgeous. That's my favourite of today.
We've got a whole row of casks that are from the same vintage ex-Islay cask. What I think would be interesting is if you actually just pick one at random, preferably on the top row for the sake of the warehouse team, just so we can compare it to that one. I really liked that previous one. I think I'd be more than happy to drink that on a Friday night. But for the case of balance, let's pick another one. But I want you to pick it.
Okay.
Just at random. That's how I picked that. It's just a feeling, Sometimes you have a feeling about casks. Pick anything you like. So we found 19,000 casks, and no two taste the same. And this is one of the most exciting, most interesting thing about single malt whiskey. It's just the variety. They might, don't get me wrong, they might taste similar, and I would kind of hope there should be some element of consistency, but cask to cask, these whiskies are different.
Does smell very nice, this one. It tastes similar-ish to the last one, but it's not as good.
It's a bit more fiery, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit more burny. And yeah, it's interesting because they're made in the same year, they're made in the same way, same casks, but...
Aged in the same warehouse?
Yeah, the same warehouse, yeah, but there is a noticeable difference between the whiskies. It's interesting because that last one was a 10 out of 10. I'd say this one's maybe a 7, back down to a 7. That last one was really exceptional.
Yeah.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah,
really good. Really good.
Let's try the one next door.
Okay.
Just, I can tell this cask has never been opened before.
Oh,
Ever.
wow.
It's got a very old, dusty bum. So this, you opened 602, this is 601.
It is nice. I think I prefer it to 602. Yeah, but still not as much as the first one. It's so interesting how they're all different. It really is.
They're like siblings, but they have their own personality.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or like twins,
Yeah, like twins, triplets.
Triplets.
Triplets, but all have their own personality and identity. This one feels a little bit more spicy
Spicy, yeah.
than the previous ones.
Yeah, it's a wee bit hotter. I think it's probably higher.
A bit more like tingly in your mouth. Like a little bit like spicy. Yeah. So I think decision made, Callum. I think there's a clear winner out of all the ones we've tried.
Yeah, the first ex-Islay cask.
It's exceptional. Very, very good.
And something that actually, as a distillery, as Ardnamurchan Distillery, we've never actually bottled anything from these types of casks.
Really?
So this would be the first single cask ex Islay release. If you're a whiskey fanatic, this whiskey's going to intrigue you. It's going to keep you engaged. But vice versa, if you're not completely new, but if you're whiskey curious or getting into whiskey, this is very approachable, I think.
Yeah, I actually think this might be my favourite whiskey I've ever tried.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm not just saying that. Like, I actually think it is. Like, it's so good. It's so good.
Do you think it's because you're in the warehouse?
Maybe it will taste the same. Like if you have it in a bottle.
Exactly, because it's going to be out of that cask intervals. I think if you pour a whiskey in a glass and it makes you smile as much as we're smiling, then it's a good dram.
Now we have chosen the cask, we need to check some information about the cask and see how much whiskey is actually inside it.
We're not measuring the volume of liquid, we're actually measuring the volume of empty space. So that'll be the liquid that's evaporated over time through the angel share. You'll probably lose maybe 1 to 1.5% of the total volume every year, just because wood is porous and it just evaporates. You'll lose a little bit of strength as well. We're also going to measure the strength, and from those two figures we'll be able to work out how many litres of pure alcohol is in there, and then that's where you're going to have to pay the tax man.
Okay.
So unfortunately you can't avoid that.
After doing lots of calculations, we worked out the strength and that this cask would give us around 240 bottles. To actually get the whiskey from the cask into the bottles, the warehouse team first bring the selected cask down, then load it onto a truck. It then makes its way along the single-track roads of the Ardnamurchan Peninsula before arriving at the distillery's bottling hall. Today is the day the whiskey is going to be bottled. I actually can't quite believe this. So this is the cask that I chose back at the Ardnamurchan Distillery, and today we are going to be taking the whiskey out of this cask and putting it into bottles. The whiskey is drawn from the cask using a pump and pipe, then transferred into a tank.
It comes out of there and it goes through the pipe at the bottom, and then it comes along here into the silver filter, and then it goes into the scrap tank, and then it will get pulled up into this tank, which has got another filtration system in it, and then it will come straight into the bottles.
So this is the bottle. Wow, it is such a nice colour. The label has been put onto one of the bottles. So this is the first time seeing the label in real life. I've only actually seen it on the computer, and wow, it has the signature on the left side and then the picture and then all the Ardnamurchan information there.
So I've turned the bottles to the side so you can see the whiskey actually going in.
Okay.
Put it on. You can see the whiskey's now coming through the pipe.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness.
So because they're blue, we can't see if they're up at the top or not.
Okay.
So what we do is we wait, and once the bottles are full to its maximum level, they come back into these pipes and they go into this tank.
Smells just like it did in the warehouse. Oh, amazing. My goodness.
And then it'll go from there and that'll get a cork in it.
Oh, so you put them all on manually?
Yeah.
Like that, okay.
Take these ones out and you can have a little shot.
Okay. That's 4 done.
That's 4 done.
Was it 240?
bottle in, and it takes the bottle up into the spinner, and then it seals the cap, and then that's it, job is done.
There'll be two labels attached to the bottle. So this one here will go on the back. So that's the QR code, which has all the information about the whisky. This is a really unique thing about the Ardnamurchan Distillery, that you can trace everything about the whisky by scanning the QR code, and then the barcode, and then information about the alcohol percentage. Then this is the label here that's going to go on the front of the whisky. So this is the one that I helped design. The finished product. How amazing! Look at all the whisky inside. So exciting. Every single bottle of this whisky came from that cask that I selected at the Ardnamurchan Distillery. I think the first ever bottle and the first ever dram to be drank from this whisky needs to be done back at the Ardnamurchan. So let's go there next. This is the first ever bottle of the whisky that we're going to open and try here.
I hope it tastes as good as it did in the warehouse.
I hope so too. So there's only going to be 240 bottles of this whisky from that cask, and after this there's only going to be 239. So let's open it.
Yeah, let's go for it. I'm excited.
Okay, I'm so excited. Right, let's open it. Oh, I think this is the perfect place to have the first ever dram back here, where it started its life.
One of the best sounds in the whisky industry.
Yeah. It is. There you go, Callum.
Flange it.
Yes, slange it. Okay.
Smells like whiskey, first of all, that's good.
It smells like it did in the warehouse
Yeah.
as well. It's gorgeous. Okay,
Ready?
let's try. That is so good.
Still tastes amazing. Wow.
Yeah. I'm not just saying this, but I actually think this is the best whiskey I've ever tasted. Really, I love it. It's so good. It's just got that little bit of peatiness from the cask. It's amazing.
It's an interesting peat as well, because we're used to that kind of... Ardnamurchan peat is not a massively intense peat, but it's definitely more pronounced than it is in this. This is just a whiff of coastal peat. I don't know if that's just because we're sitting next to the beautiful Loch Sonart and I've got coastal in my head, but this whisky has salinity, it has sweetness, and then it has that little touch of whisper. What did you say? Whisper of Islay. I love that.
It. Whisper of Islay. Such a nice description
and that's
for this.
exactly that.
I think this is the perfect whisky to drink any time of year as well. I can imagine drinking this by like a campfire in a bothy in the winter, but then also on a day like today when it's sunny, calm.
Almost warm.
Yeah, a little bit summery today.
It'd be interesting, Ruth, to try this with a little bit of water.
Yes, different whiskies have different alcohol percentages, and this one here is 58.2%. So, Callum, can you explain why this one is a little bit higher alcohol percentage than other whiskies people might have come across before?
Yeah, super briefly, for Scotch whisky to be classed as Scotch whisky, it must be bottled at 40% or higher. Now, you won't normally see many whiskies at this kind of 58 to 60% strength. That is whisky essentially that's been taken from the cask and put in the bottle, and for a whisky like this, that is exactly what you would want to put on the bottle. Like, we want you to try this whisky as though it had come out of the cask, because that's, you know, its most pure form. But the good thing about it is that, you know, on the palate, if you're not particularly used to drinking high strength whiskies, say above 46 or at cask strength, then it gives you a little bit more freedom in terms of what you do with this whiskey. There's a lot of rules and there's certain kind of things that whiskey drinkers tell you about whiskey, and some people are very matter of fact about it. You can't drink whiskey with ice, or you can't add water, or you should add water, but you should only add a little bit of water. All these different rules. My opinion is simple. Find the way you like to drink whiskey yourself and go with it that way. This seems like a bit much, but we have little pipettes. You don't need a fancy pipette to do this, but a spoon or even just a drip. What we're wanting to do here is actually just to add, I'm going to put 4 drips of water in there. Okay. We're not trying to dilute it, you can try this. We're just trying to take the edge off the alcohol strength, but also sometimes adding water to whiskey will actually bring out more flavours, depending on how much you put in there. So add it at small amounts at a time, and you'll notice that whiskey gets easier to drink, and sometimes just completely changes the smell and the flavour of the whiskey. Vice versa, you can actually add too much. So that's why we suggest little bits at a time. Find the way you like to drink whiskey. Maybe that's with no water, maybe that's with a couple of drips, maybe that's with a splash. Shall we try it with a wee splash?
Yes, let's give this a try with the water.
So straight away there's less like prickle on the nose. Okay. So it's a wee bit softer. I'd also say you could smell the peat a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it's bringing out that smoky aroma just a touch more. And on the palate,
it's really nice with the water as well. That whiskey's so easy to drink. It's lovely.
I wouldn't go as far as breakfast whiskey, but it's definitely easier. And it's got that, it still has that nice kind of black pepper spice, so you still know you're drinking a whiskey. But this is a whiskey I'm going to say proud of, but I didn't make it. But we did find it. We found a good one, I would say. This is an absolute belter of a dram.
Let's see what other people think.
Yeah, lovely. What a nice cask. Picked well.
Yeah, it's good. Lovely.
It's a good dram, that.
That's really good. Really nice.
That is interesting. It is a really nice whiskey. Yeah, that one's coming home with me.
Well, thank you so much for all your help choosing it, and this has been such a fun process putting this whiskey into this bottle, and it's now available for all of you to buy that are watching this video. The price of the whiskey is £85. I know you're watching from all over the world, and I wanted this whiskey to be available to everyone, so I've arranged shipping through Royal Mile Whiskies, who can send whiskey from Scotland to a wide range of countries. That includes many states in the USA, Australia, and across Europe. If you'd like a bottle, I'll leave the link to the webpage in the video description below. 3 years ago, I started this YouTube channel, and I could never have imagined that I would have my very own whiskey from one of my favourite distilleries here in Scotland. All of this is possible thanks to you who watch my videos. So I need to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.